Hi, everyone. This is one of our last topics in computer science this semester, and this is recursion. A lot of you in some of your math classes has had recursion, right? If you've ever did the famous Fibonacci series, you've used it. Recursion is basically just functions that call themselves, right? Um, You've had functions that call other functions, so you know the concept, but you have to think it's kind of a little bit different story when a function keeps calling itself um, until it reaches its base case. Right? This will probably be a series of videos, but here's the first one, and probably simplest in theory. Right? I've got a function here. Well, let's look at main first. I've got a function called message. I'm going to pass it a 5, and that's all this function, all this main is going to do. Let's take a look at the function. All right. The function message receives an integer. And the base case, you always have to have a base case with a recursive function because it'll just keep calling itself. It becomes like an infinite loop. All right. So as we maybe I should have put some comments in this. We enter a positive number, all right, and however many times that is, this is just going to see out this is a recursive function. Then it's gonna call itself with times minus 1, all right. So it's going to decrement and do it again, all right. It's important to use an if statement here instead of a while statement. But so if I entered a 3, this is going to go 3 times, but it's going to call itself and call itself and call itself 3 times. So look at this. You can just imagine that this is going to print out 5 times. I'm going to pass it a 5. It's going to print out this recursive function 5 times. So, right. In theory, that seems simple, but there's something a little complicated goes on. It's after this, all right? After this if statement and what happens after it, all right? What happens in this area here? Because remember, this is in this function, it's making it down to this call here, and then it's calling itself, so it never gets to this, all right? This is sort of like the extra. And I'm going to replace this function here. I'm going to keep the same function. I'm just going to add a little bit to it. I'm going to delete that. And I already got it prepared down here. All right. So now the function is going to go see out message called with blank time. So if I leave the 5 in there, it's going to be 5 in times, right? Then it's going to pass it on to times greater than 0, or times greater than 0, and it is. Then it's going to call times minus 1, so 5 minus 4. Then it's going to go up and do it again and again and again. All right? By doing that, it never reaches this statement down here. All right? That's the thing with recursive functions that make them complicated and productive at the same time. So what's going to happen with this is it's going to go over and over again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. And the last time through it, its times is not going to be greater than 0. All right. Then it's finally going to make it down to this line here. Right. Message returning with, and this will be the number 1 times. All right. And then it's got to finish what it started. Remember, this has been through this function 5 times. So these will pop off one at a time in reverse. I'm trying to think of a better way to say that. But the best way to see this is to actually run it. Okay. So the first, you can imagine what's going to happen here. It's going to, message is called with 5 in times. All right. This is a recursive function. Then it's going to call itself. Message is called with 4 in times, blah, blah. Then once it reaches this base case, times is greater than 0, something's got to happen. It starts going backwards. It starts popping them off. All right. It'll be 1, 2, 3. Message return was 1 in times. I'm going to run this and let you see it. All right. Message is called with 5 in times, all the way down to 0. I guess I didn't. Yeah, it's greater than 0. All right. Message returned with 0 in times. That last line out after the inner if statement, these start popping off in reverse. Think of it like that, is push and pop. Now they're popping off in reverse. This will make a little more sense in the next video when we start dealing with numbers. All right. But again, I want you to just, for right now, just take a look at this. This, I'm going to pass it a number. All right. It's going to decrement. And then it calls itself here. It never makes it to this line. All right. And once it does, it pops them off in reverse. Got to think of a better way of saying that. All right. Like I said, this will make a little more sense when we get to actually doing some numbers. But I'm going to run this again so that you can see it. It just keeps these 2 lines keep happening. Message is called, and this is a recursive function, and then it calls itself again and happens. Then it gets down to the base case when times is no longer greater than 0. Times is actually equal to 0 at one point, and then these start popping off. So I just want you to see this again. All right. Like I said, this will make a little bit more sense when it comes to numbers. Recursion's not like super intuitive. It's a very powerful it's a powerful tool to use, and it's actually really clean. It can actually save a lot of code and a lot of time. Like I said, watch this video, maybe sit and look at the code and think about it, and then watch the next one with numbers.